Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Education Minister reports 43% decline in teacher resignation. Tension brewing between residents and MP in Western Westmoreland. And later in sports, Jamaica to play Guatemala CONCACAF Gold Cup quarterfinals. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. The Minister of Education is reporting a 43% decline in the number of teachers who resigned from the public sector. Education Minister Favour Williams made the declaration at this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. More in this report. Under pressure to address the teacher shortage, the Education Minister came armed with data. She noted that between January and June this year, 287 teachers resigned from the public sector. This is a 43% reduction when compared to 506 during the same period last year.
Like any other sector of workers in the economy, it is to be expected that on an annual basis, we will see movements in and out of the education sector. If you look across the financial sector, the medical field, in IT, in any sector in Jamaica, there is a percent of persons who make personal decisions.
She reiterated that not all teachers who have resigned are migrating. She explained some have taken their annual 4 months or 6 months vacation, as well as retirement.
This represents about 7% of the cadre of teachers, and the cadre of teachers total about 25,000 teachers across the education system. This year, approximately 2,300 teachers are eligible, have earned their 4 months or 8 months leave or retirement, and will be proceeding on their 4 months or 8 months vacation.
The Education Minister says the annual cost of replacements for teachers while on vacation is approximately $3.1 billion. Minister of Science and Technology Darrell Vass continues to insist that the requisite infrastructure to accommodate electronic vehicles is in place. Speaking at today's post-cabinet press briefing, Mr. Vass said the government approved the electric mobility policy which came into effect last week. He says this will pave the way for persons to import electronic vehicles into the island.
I'm very happy in relation to the amount of EV and the diversity of players who are going into that business and diversifying from fuel into that business as well. I don't think that there's pretty much any township, major township that you can go through now that you don't have 1 or 2 EV stations at the gas stations themselves, and others will be standalone.
Tension is brewing between residents of Retreat and Member of Parliament for Western Westmoreland, Moreland Wilson. The people accused the MP of instructing the police to detain a resident who had verbally attacked him during a protest last week, a claim the police have rejected. More in this report. Last Saturday, residents in Retreat, Westmoreland took to the streets to protest about the lack of water and bad roads in their community. The people have accused Member of Parliament for Western Westmoreland, Moreland Wilson, of providing poor representation. And when he showed up to quell tempers, things got heated.
So water has been restored from 8 p.m. last night. Those who want to get the solution,
the police intervened, taking one man in custody. The residents are not pleased, arguing that they are being victimized.
We had demonstrated on Saturday morning about we need water for the children and the people to go to work, to bathe. And because we had demonstrated, Mr. Moreland Wilson had took it up in his hands and detained one of our community members, and we have 11 more to be detained, including me.
And so they staged another protest Tuesday night, blocking the roads, demanding the release of the detained resident. But Deputy Superintendent of Police, DSP in charge of operations in Westmoreland, Adrian Hamilton, says the man committed serious offences and will be charged.
That man is currently in custody, facilitating the probe of a serious threat that includes a threat to murder. Not only was that threat uttered on Saturday, but we later received information and reports that a continuation of that threat continued up to Monday, and we considered serious enough for the police to take action.
The police are also searching for Tian Samuels and Mikhail McCoy. The residents are seeking the Prime Minister's intervention.
You guys are very peculiar. And with your peculiarness, we are very careful with you guys, because if we demonstrate or if we say anything, you guys send your whatever to come and detain us. And we're seeking an intervention in Western Westmoreland retreat.
Meanwhile, DSP Hamilton is urging residents to refrain from blocking the roads.
And in the same breath, I want to appeal to the residents that there's an avenue for us to hear your side, for us to resolve matters amicably without resorting to blocking the roads. And I want to extend that olive branch to the citizens and their representatives as well, that we can iron out the situation if there's clarity that is needed.
Meanwhile, DSP Hamilton is warning residents in Westmoreland that the parish is under a state of public emergency.
And I want to remind the public that we are under a state of public emergency. And we acted under Regulation 33, which states that a constable has the power to detain any person who the constable reasonably suspect has committed, is found committing, or is about to commit any offense under the schedule, or plans, instigate, or facilitate any of those prescribed offenses. And in this case,
the police say fake kidnapping calls are putting a strain on its resources. In an interview on TVJ's Smile Jamaica this morning, Detective Sergeant Grace Fraser Lawrence noted that this has been a long-standing issue.
What has happened in the past was that persons would normally come together, collude together, conspire together in order to probably try to get some monies from their family members and try to get something from their family in order to do whatever they want. What we have been seeing happening now, though, is that we are seeing that persons are actually faking their kidnapping and saying that they are kidnapped when they're actually not kidnapped.
Mrs. Fraser Lawrence says these cases of public mischief will have legal recourse and is urging persons to desist from the practice.
For public mischief, it is a common law offense. So, of course, it's within the parish court. So it actually has a fine. It may be a misdemeanor, but you can get a 3-year sentence and you can pay a penalty of about $1 million. And of course, you will have a criminal record.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Several farmers in St. Elizabeth can now breathe a sigh of relief. This after receiving well-needed help after being affected by recent heavy rains that destroyed their crops. More in this report.
Drums, tools and supplies as promised by the Ministry of Agriculture. All for 35 farmers in southern St. Elizabeth who lost over $100 million in crops following heavy rains. Their cry did not fall on deaf ears as a team from the Ministry of Agriculture, along with other stakeholders, recently toured several affected areas in the parish. Winston Simpson is Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA.
You made the call we heard and we are now responding. When the farmers called and ministers insisted that we make an early tour, we toured and we saw the disaster of the roads, of the crops, and how much the farm families were affected.
He said following the tour, more stakeholders came on board.
We went back to the drawing board. By the time we got back to the drawing board, our input suppliers wrote us. They called us. They engaged us. They said they want to be a part of this process because these are also their farmers. So farmers, you are not just loved by RADA. You are loved by the input suppliers.
The Agriculture Ministry had pledged $63 million to assist the affected farmers. State Minister for Agriculture and Member of Parliament for St. Elizabeth Southeastern Franklin Whittle told the farmers to expect even more help.
The ministry is now in the process of doing this procurement in terms of how we deal with extended $63 million. So more support will be coming after today as the ministry goes through the farmer process.
In response, some farmers say they are elated as they are now able to get back on their feet. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
The Jamaica Public Service has invested more than $300 million to upgrade one of its plants in Clarendon. The Light and Power Company says the work to expand the capacity of its Parnassus substation has more than doubled the output and improved service reliability. 34,000 customers in the wider Maypen and Clarendon service areas are benefiting from the $2.25 million or 347.6 million Jamaican dollar investment. JPS says the company has earmarked millions to do more upgrades island-wide, with expansion projects set for Porus in Manchester this year, followed by Paradise in Westmoreland. On the international scene, demand for oil is down around the world, and that's prompting Saudi Arabia and Russia to keep production cuts in place for at least another month. Saudi Arabia has already made hefty cuts to its oil output in an effort to bolster prices amid concerns of a global economic slowdown, but little has changed as Brent crude is still trading below $81 a barrel. Russia's announcement comes after the OPEC Plus member already agreed to a 500,000 barrels per day cut in March. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report. In this evening's health report, we look at hydration.
So someone who is in an air-conditioned office all day, their water requirement will be far different from somebody who is, say, doing manual labor out in the sun all day. So there's no hard and fast rule per se. What has been said many times over is, oh, you need 8 glasses of water per day. The data behind that is not as secure as we'd like to think. Be guided by thirst.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. Focus on your body's signal. Drink a glass of water before each meal. And check the color of your urine. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres has called for the international community to address the security and economic crisis in Haiti. He says the situation is dire with soaring humanitarian needs and no political solution. Mr. Guterres praised CARICOM leaders for their efforts in finding a solution and urged UN to assist the Haitian government in finding a solution. He called for a robust international security force to help the Haitian National Police defeat and dismantle gangs. On the international scene, over 50 bodies remain unclaimed a month after a deadly train crash in India, which killed at least 293 people. The accident occurred on June 2 in Odisha, where a passenger train hit a stationary goods train and derailed on an adjacent track. Over 1,000 people were injured in the crash, India's deadliest rail accident this century. And 16 children allegedly abused in the Philippines have been rescued after Australian police discovered sexually explicit material on a man's phone in Sydney. The investigation began when the Australian Border Force intercepted a Queensland man returning from the Philippines. The man was charged with grooming and possession of child abuse material, which carry a potential 15-year prison sentence. The children have been placed into the care of the Philippine Department of Social Welfare and Development. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Ann Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jordan Fort.